Hi, welcome back to the video book of Ballads, A Tinker's Dozen. We're going to finish up the first story, and if you look on the site in the comments below this video, you'll find the song that the story spawned. So this is just a little bit to finish up, and so if you're comfortable, we can begin. Here we go. But then one day Samuel was due to go into work at noon. The town drunk and a shady patent medicine salesman were spending a few days in the jail's 2 cells. Suddenly shots rang out from the center of town. Samuel grabbed his gun belt from the peg on the wall, slipped on his coat and hat, and kissed his bride goodbye. "Don't worry, darling," he said as he ran out the front door. By the time that Samuel got to the site of the shots, it was all over. Sheriff Joseph McNulty lay face down in a pool of his own blood in the middle of the street. "What happened?" Samuel asked a bystander. "A man drove up in a silver 34 Ford V8, robbed the bank, and when the sheriff stopped him as he left the bank carrying a big bag of money, the man shot him down like a dog with a big automatic rifle," the man told him, still shaking like a leaf. "Which way did he go?" Samuel asked. The quaking man just pointed to the west. Samuel looked around. There must have been 10 or 15 men standing around doing nothing. Bob, Frank, Cole, Jim, John, Jarrett, Arthur McCoy, Bill Chadwell, Charlie Pitts, Tom McDaniel, George Shepard, get your guns and your trucks. We're going after that bastard that murdered the sheriff. Charlie Pitts said, "We're with you, Sheriff." Samuel looked at Charlie, confused. "You're the sheriff now, Mr. Cowley," Charlie said, and then ran off to get his shotgun. Sheriff Cowley nodded and then said, "Arthur, Bill, Tom, George, get in a truck and take the back road to Manchester. Try to block the road at Deer Road. We'll try to chase him to you. Hurry." The 4 men ran off, and a minute later George Shepard's truck took the back road, leaving a cloud of dust behind. The sun had long set by the time that Samuel returned home to Martha. She had made dinner and was keeping it warm in the oven for her husband. Samuel walked in the door and went to his desk in the living room. He reached into his vest pocket and fished out a little key that he used to unlock the bottom drawer of the oak desk. Samuel pulled out a bottle of whiskey, twisted the stopper until it popped off, and then took a long drink from the bottle. When he had finished, he looked at the bottle's label and took a second, even longer pull on the bottle. Martha had never seen her husband like this before. She had never even seen him take a drink, not even at their wedding. "Sammy," she said softly as she walked over to her husband and put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "What is it?" Samuel took his wife's hand and led her to the love seat. He sat down almost like a rag doll, flopping limply, with no strength or care. "It's terrible, Mar," he said in a quiet, tiny voice. "It was the worst thing I've ever seen." And then Samuel told Martha what had happened in town and how he had put the posse together and how they had followed the bank robber into an ambush in the west. Arthur McCoy, Bill Chadwell, Tom McDonald, and George Shepard drove ahead to block the road to Manchester at Deer Road. The rest of us followed. The bastard drove that silver Ford V8 like he knew that he was going to hell and wanted to get there first. But we caught up to him about a mile from Deer Road. Then he saw the roadblock and slammed on his brakes. The car skidded to a stop, and he figured, I suppose, that he had nothing to lose. He put a BAR in the window of his car and commenced shooting at us, pausing only to replace his empty clips with full ones. But Arthur and his boys were letting him have it from behind with their shotguns, and I had the department's Thompson, so even though the battle raged for what must have been 15 minutes, I've never seen so much shooting, our men finally shot him dead. Charlie Pitts was shot in the wrist, and John Jarrett had his ear blown off, but they'll be all right. Then, Martha said, relieved that her husband was safe and her friends and neighbors were, for the most part, whole, justice was done. "The devil's justice," Samuel said, choking back tears. "The devil's justice?" Martha asked. "What do you mean, Sammy?" "When the shooting stopped, Mar, we went to the Ford to make sure that he was dead. The car was shot full of holes and the bank robber was as riddled as the Ford, but—" Martha said nothing more and let her husband finish when he had the strength. "But," he repeated, "on the front seat of the car next to the dead man was a little boy, just a sprat, maybe 5 or 6 years old, killed by one bullet that pierced his chest." Martha closed her eyes and squeezed her Samuel's hand. "That bastard must have kidnapped the child and then gone off to rob our bank. There'll be a special place in hell for him, Mar, a terrible special place." And Sheriff Samuel Cowley broke down and shed the tears that he had been trying his best to hold inside. Martha held her husband close, closed her eyes, and softly sang a little Scottish song that her mother had sung to her when she was young. That's all of the story. The song is The Great Silkie of Shule Skerry, and you'll find it in the comments after this video. Thank you.